All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar for February. This is Scott Clayson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv. I see a number of people who are shuffling in to the webinar here. Hopefully you can all see my screen okay with the slide, letting you know you're at TimeSolv's Wednesday webinar. I'm going to go ahead and wait another minute or so, let people trickle in. And so you do have an opportunity to get that, as I always say every month, that last glass of water. Do whatever you need to do, grab lunch, and I'll be back in about a minute. Okay, I am back. I am going to go ahead and get started. Doesn't look like we have any other people who are trickling in here, so I think we can just get going. Again, my name is Scott Clayson, Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv, and I conduct our Wednesday webinars on the second Wednesday of every month. So here we are for February. I am joining you from sunny but chilly Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the temperature has raised a few degrees above zero. But I've been told this is probably the warmest day of the week we'll have for the next 4 or 5 days. By the weekend, our highs here aren't even going to get above zero. So I'm assuming that most of you, while you're probably somewhere somewhat cold from the look of things, I probably got you beat in the ultimate coldness. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that are new to our Wednesday webinars, this is the place where we dissect some of the tips and tricks to get the most out of your TimeSolv account. Make sure that things that you may have learned when you initially started with TimeSolv uh, that you may have forgotten about because you don't use those particular features anymore. It's a muscle memory kind of thing. But you are looking around for it, and we just want to remind you all the various things that you can do within TimeSolv you may not have been aware of. And it's also a good opportunity to learn about some of the new features that have been rolled out in the last month, since we do a schedule of releases approximately once every 2 weeks, roughly. Sometimes it'll just be kind of behind the scenes, under the hood kind of enhancements and changes. Sometimes it's very prominent feature updates. Sometimes it's bug fixes. But generally our dev team works on a 2-week cycle of getting new releases out. So as always, everyone here is on mute. I do encourage you all to ask questions if you have them as I go through this, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. And as always, I reserve the right to not know the answer to a question and talk to our support people. And I always follow up with an email to everyone who attends here with an answer to that question. We are being recorded, and I will send out a link to watch this at your convenience if you missed something, I went too fast on something, or you had to step away for whatever reason. So as per normal, we generally are going to cover 4 topics. Usually it's the topics that were coincide with the tip of the week emails that we do send out to all owners of their TimeSolv account and all administrators of the TimeSolv account every Monday, roughly. We'll send out our tip of the week. So this is sort of a come to life version of those tip of the weeks. All right, I think I got all of the who, what, why, where, and when's out of the way. Let's go ahead and get started then. The 4 topics we're going to talk about today, there's one kind of newer feature I want to show, and then a couple of features that have been around for a while, but it's always good to revisit what you can do here. So the first is a feature that was requested by quite a few of our users over a course of time, and we've now put it into the live application. And that is the ability to create statements at the matter level. So I'll review how you go about doing that, and it's a good opportunity to review the difference between statements and invoices. Then the next three are features that have been in place for a little while, but it's always good to revisit. The first one is how do and where you go to set the session timeout duration. And by that, I mean how long TimeSolv can be open before it's automatically going to log you out. And that's a security um, feature that we have in place. So we'll go over where you can do that and how to change that. Then we'll talk about two ways in which you can copy existing content in your TimeSolv account. The first is the ability to either copy or move time entries, and actually you can do that with expense entries as well. And the other is how you can copy matters to different clients if you'd like, and what the benefits of that will be. And if we have a little time near the end, then I do want to talk again about a topic we talked about in my webinar, I think in November or December, and that is our newest, really exciting feature that we have to allow you to run payments for invoices on your time in batch. So if we have time, we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and get into our first topic, and that is creating statements at the matter level. Now, believe it or not, we do oftentimes get the question from people who want to know what's the difference between an invoice and a statement. And hopefully everyone here knows that what we're talking about is an invoice is when you're sending an actual bill to your client for new work that you've done that they owe you money on. Whereas a statement is simply just that. It's a statement of their account, and there is not necessarily new work or new money on that statement, but it's a reminder that they still owe you money. So some people will just resend invoices that have not been paid. Some will want to just generate a statement because that covers everything that you've ever done with that client, so they can review that and pay you any outstanding balance they may have. So to create your statements, you go under the Invoices area of TimeSolv down to Statements. Now, whereas previously when you created statements, you could only create them at the client level. In other words, if you had multiple matters for a client, you're working on several different matters for one client, it would consolidate all of the statement information, all of your kind of past history of both of those matters onto just the one statement. And we understand that that may not be optimal, and that there are clients that will want to, for whatever reason, send statements to their clients one at a time, one matter at a time. Maybe you work, you have to submit things to an insurance, adjuster, whatever the case may be. This allows you to do it one at a time because you don't want them to see the other matters that you're working on. So when you're under invoices and statements, we simply go over here to new statements. And now there's a couple of ways in which you can generate them at the matter level. You can either say, hey, create them for all matters, in which case now it's going to display every single matter that I have, and you can select which ones you want if you'd like. Or you can still keep it at the client level and just say, hey, I want matter statements. A couple of important things to note in how the statements are going to be created. You can create, if you'd like, statements for those clients who have a zero balance. In other words, they don't owe you any money. So generally there's not going to be a good reason why you need to issue a statement, but if for whatever reason they need one for their records, or you need a copy, or whatever the case may be, you can simply check this box and it will generate statements even if they have a zero, even for clients and matters that have a zero balance. And then this is generally the main reason why you're sending statements is They haven't paid you yet for the work that you did, for the invoices you sent, and you have no new work and no new invoices to send them. So this is a good filter. Like, hey, if this client or matter hasn't received an invoice since, let's say December 1st, and then generate a statement. Because if you generated an invoice since then, oftentimes as most of you know who generate invoices, you can include a statement of account on your invoices. This is basically just doing that part of it, just the statement of account. And if they don't have a new invoice, they're not seeing that statement of account. So I put December 1st here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And notice that it's creating for each of my clients individual matter level statements. And then I can simply select all, hit send, and it's going to email them to those that I have designated in my invoice settings to have an email sent to them, or they can be printed as a PDF. It'll be generated as a PDF, which you can then print. So the difference is, let's go and create new statements again. But this time, let's do it at just the client level, all clients, and go back to December 1st again. Now you notice I just have client statements, and it's going to consolidate down the various matters onto that one statement. And you can always download it here if you'd like. A caveat that people should understand is creating and sending statements is essentially one-off activities. We do not, TimeSolv, as you know, does not save statements that have been created in the past. So there's not like, you can go to your sent invoice screen and I'll see all your sent invoices. There is no sent statements screen. The idea is you're sending reminders to your clients about payment by showing them the statement and money that they still owe you. If you like to obviously keep a copy for yourself, you certainly can. You can, again, check the box, hit download and download the ones you want, or click here and download. When you go to, if they all have printer checked here, so that's going to generate the statements onto a PDF that you can then save and print if you'd like, or just save. So there are ways to keep record of the statements that you have sent to your clients, but I think that is an important caveat. So we're excited to be able to offer the ability to generate statements per matter and not just per client. Okay, any questions on statements before I move on? Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. Question, sometimes my client address does not print on statements. Why? That generally would happen if, especially if you're creating and this was, I think, an issue that people used to have that I believe has been, if you were generating statements at just the client level here, oftentimes people will not have a contact designated at the client level. So here you can see I have a contacts and they're designated. This is my main contact at the client level, but this may be blank for you. And you may only have your clients designated at the matter level. So you could see right now, I don't need to put one at the matter level because I have the default invoice up here at the client level. But if you had one down here at the matter level, but not at the client level, that is perhaps why the client address does not print on statements. If you find that is still an issue where that's not the answer, and thank you for the question, Donna, then contact our support and they should be able to walk you through why that address is not appearing on the statement itself. But I'm guessing that may be the reason. Okay, any other questions before I move on? Okay, let's talk about the session timeout duration. And this is the length of time that a user can remain logged on in our application if there's no activity taking place. And this is at the entire firm level. So whatever you set here will be in place for every single professional that you have. So what we want to do is we'll go back to into TimeSolv, go to account and settings. And you want to go down to security, and you can have set your timeout duration by hours. I have it set for 8 hours, and you can set it to whatever you want it set to be. I encourage, for those of us who are working from home and we don't have to really worry about others walking past our desk or things like that, I would set it for a longer duration. If you are still in an in-office work environment, then perhaps you'd want to set this to be a little bit, maybe an hour or half hour. So that means that if there's no activity within the application in your browser within that set period of time, then the next time you try to do anything, it'll log you out until you need to log back in again. Pretty simple stuff, but a good security thing to keep in mind. Well, it looks like I do have another question on statements. If I have my account set to apply interest, will statement show interest accrued? Yes, it will. Yes, it should show, the statement should show the interest that has accrued. It's a good question. I'm going to confirm that with our support people, and I'll follow up an email, but I'm 99, 95, 96% sure that yes, it will show the interest accrued when you generate that statement. So if you have your invoice is set for, say net 30, and then you have interest accrues after that net 30, and you're now creating a statement 60 days after the invoice is sent, it should show the accrued interest for that 30-day period in between. Yeah, good question. And Donna asking about the timeout duration. Does it apply to all users, or can you enter different timeout settings by user? I believe that you can set it per user. I misstated at the beginning. I believe it is per user. Okay. And again, I will double check that as well. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it is per user, but I'm going to take notes on per user for timeout and then interest accrued. I'm already playing the I reserve the right not to know the answer card. So those are all good questions. Thanks, Donna. Okay, so that's how you set your timeout durations. And I encourage everybody who are admins and owners of their account to come in here and determine, what kind of security level. If you don't, and I've gone over the two-factor authentication a couple of different Wednesday webinars, but I know this is an important consideration for a lot of people, is making sure that you turn on a two-factor authentication, and what type of authentication do you want to do, and how often do you want to make people authenticate. For example, we use Office 365, and I have to authenticate using a two-factor authenticator every time I log into Office 365. It's set on a monthly level. So like once every 30 days, I have to go into my Authenticator app that we use and put in the code. And you can set it one of two ways. Authenticator app, and there's several out there. Google has an Authenticator app. Microsoft has an Authenticator app. There's a good one called Authy. It's very simple. You just download those apps onto your device. Then you can scan a code that you get when you try to log in. It's a QR code, and it'll automatically essentially log you in. And then you'll have to put in like one of those 6-digit codes. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with that from text messages. You could also do it by email if you don't want to do it by Authenticator app. But for all intents and purposes, Authenticator applications are considered the highest level of security for two-factor authentication, more so than even just text messaging or by email. So, okay, let's talk about copying and moving data. So first, I want to review the ability that you have in TimeSolv to copy or move time entries to other clients and matters. I think a lot of us have found, and let me go back to like our time settings. A lot of you have probably seen over time that if you have a time entry that, I'm gonna try to find if I can find an unbilled one. well, this one has even been billed. It's already been billed, but that's okay. You can go ahead and copy that. It's going to have the same information, the same description. You can create it for a new matter. You can copy it to a different date. You can do all sorts of stuff that you want to it to copy um, time entries. But if you need to do several at once, and I know we've run up against this is part of the reason we implemented this feature where people have called and said, oh man, I accidentally created just a ton of time entries and I did them under the wrong matter. And maybe it was the right client, but the wrong matter, whatever the case may be. There are ways to move those time entries to the right matter, or you can actually copy and create new time entries for a different matter. Because maybe, a lot of you probably do the same or very similar type of work and create similar time entries for multiple clients. If you're a family lawyer, real estate lawyer, whatever the case may be, a lot of these time entries are going to look the same. The only real difference might be the hours that it took you to work on it. So if you want to do something in mass with your time entries, you come under time entry search to start. Then you can go ahead and search for time entries using a multitude of filters that are available. You can search by client and matter. You can find it here specifically if you'd like, if you know the name, time period, by the professional who made the time entry, whether it's been billed or not billed or rejected, if it's new, approved, all this sort of stuff. This is a good one too, because this sometimes comes up where billing managers at larger firms, they go to create invoices and they find or they see they can't create a draft invoice for somebody because there's a timer running, but they don't know whose timer is running. And maybe there's eight, lawyers out there, 8 timekeepers. Somebody's got a timer they haven't turned off. So you could even filter time, search for time entries by all time entries that have a running timer going. That's a handy little thing here. So anyway, you can do your search, find the time entries you're looking for. In this case, I'm just gonna, let's say I'm gonna do it for an estate plan. So I'm gonna search for all the time entries I've made for this specific client and matter. Oh, oh, there we go. I have some time entries. They're older. You can see I did these back in the summer, it looks like. So if I want to copy all of these, you can see that one of these is waiting for approval. The rest have actually been billed. I can simply select all of these. And once I select any time entry, you'll notice over here, this copy move button was grayed out. It's now available to select. So again, watch this. It's grayed out. I select any one time entry, all time entries, it doesn't matter. And it now becomes available for me to use. I hit copy/move. And now you can say, okay, I want to move this time entry or copy it. I can change who the professional is, select who the professional is. This time entry is going to be for, the date, the matter that you want to move or copy this to. So let's say, I want to move it over to, I don't know, let me see if I can find one that might be reasonable. Let's say that matter. This one has a matter plan, it looks like, because it just produced to me the plan task to dos and say it's for task 1. This has activity codes for this particular matter, it looks like, that are required and so on. So if you choose a matter or a client that has other attributes to it, it's going to essentially ask you or make you take on those attributes when you copy or move these. And now it's simply just either copy or move these entries entirely over to that different matter. So in this case, I'm just going to say copy. And now these 7 time entries have been copied successfully. So now if I go over here and look at Dana Real here, she's actually one of our consultants, here's some of the time entries that have been copied over. Okay, so I didn't change the date on that. So they've gone back to the exact same date back in November, or excuse me, July and June. Okay, that is for how you can copy or move time entries in mass, in bulk, in batch, whatever term you want to use. All right, our next topic then is similar in that we do have the ability, and this can come in handy. Again, you're doing a lot of the same type of work perhaps, because that's the area of law that you specialize in, and you want to take very specific matter attributes and just copy them to a new matter that you're creating. So a good example, like let's say I have an estate, I'm a family lawyer, I do estate planning, and I may have a number of certain things I always put on, or always have set for my estate plan matters. Maybe Benny Barnes at my law firm is always the responsible professional. And I always have a rate by activity, then timekeeper default, because I charge different rates depending on the activity. Um, Maybe I always have the activity code option is required and not optional. Maybe I always select, I've created some custom groups here called, type of matter. Maybe I always designate family law and they're in state. You can do that across the board here with the invoice settings. Maybe there's unique things you've done with your invoice settings when you do estate plans. Maybe you've modified the narratives specifically to this type of matter that you're working on. Whatever the case may be. Again, you might, for every estate plan, it's always going to be, Tony Hill is always working on it and Benny Barnes is always working on it, whatever. But these settings are in place, for this particular matter. You have a matter plan, whatever. The point is, if you want to copy essentially all of these settings for this particular matter to a new matter, you can do that by simply coming over here in any matter you're viewing and click Copy Matter. You can select a different client if you'd like. Okay, let's say it's Jeff Lamp, and we could call it, estate plan or estate plan, estate plan. And you can decide how much of this matter information you want to copy over to this new one you're creating. By default, it's going to come out of the box with, you're going to copy everything. So contacts, originators, basically this follows this general originators, contacts, invoice settings, follows all of these tabs across the top. So you see contacts, invoice, team, so on and so forth. So you can copy pretty much everything over to the new matter. So we're just going to hit copy, matter copied successfully. So now I can come over here, search for Jeff Lamp. There's that estate plan that I just created. Benny Barnes is set as the responsible professional. The rate by is what it was for that other matter. All of these things are already pre-populated. On my team, I have Benny Barnes and Tony Hill are checked. I have my matter plan. That's actually I didn't have a matter plan in place for over there. But the point being, you can see everything that was in place for that other matter has been copied over to this new matter for a different client. Again, I think it's fairly convenient. If you find that you have a lot of matters for different clients that are all pretty much the same, think of it as almost like having like a matter template with different settings that that, hey, I'm going to be using these settings for this matter over and over and over again. Instead of having to recreate those settings every time you create a fresh out of the box matter, just go to the one that is sort of the master matter or template matter and hit copy matter. Heck, I've even heard of some people that you can create a dummy client and maybe just call it, template client. And then you create matters for the different areas of law that you do a lot of, different work in that you have different settings for, and just call them like your, family law template, real estate template, patent template, whatever the case may be. Set up, put all those settings in place that you want. And then when you go and you have a brand new client, instead of having to create a new matter and change all those settings, just open up the existing template, hit copy matter, and away you go. It'd be a great way of being able to create matter templates essentially. Does the TimeSolv user require advanced permissions to hit the copy matter field? Not all our users have administrative permissions. Good question. You are going to want to make sure that the professional that you may not want everybody to be able to copy a matter. So under their permissions for clients, if they have all access, they don't have to be an administrator, but if they have all access, then they should be able to copy the matter. So that's a good question. So again, it's not either or. It's not they have to be an administrator or not. You can specifically for clients make them all access and they should be okay. Good question, Anu. Thank you. Any other questions about copying a matter? You guys have been crushing it with the good questions here today. I appreciate it. Okay, one last thing then, since we have a little bit of time, about I generally try to make these around 45 minutes or so, and we've been here about a half hour. I do want to remind everyone again about a feature that we put into place back in sometime in November um, that allows you to run payments on sent invoices in batch. Now, a couple of things have to be, and I want to show you guys this again. It's a big push that we're doing. We call it zero AR, making sure that your accounts receivable balance is always at zero by getting paid when you want to get paid. And there's a couple of kind of boxes you have to check in order to make this happen. First and obvious is you need your client's payment information. And we have some firms that use us that upfront, when they engage with a new client, they are getting a payment authorization form. And that can be a credit card number or banking information. And I know a lot of you might do work where you deal with corporate law. You're working with companies who don't have a credit card per se. They want to issue you a check. Well, they would very likely be able to issue you their ACH banking information as well. You can then store that with one of our two payment integrators. If you have an integration, an account set up with either LawPay or LexCharge, then you can take that payment information you've collected from your client, go to the clients and matters in TimeSolv, and for a particular client, as I click on Bob Smith, I can go to payment settings. And this is where you can enter their credit card or their bank information. Now, it's not being stored in TimeSolv. It's being stored at either LexCharge or LawPay, who that's what they do. And you could store them directly at LawPay or LexCharge. And you've had the ability to do this for years with both of those entities. So that is, there's no ethical issues, code of conduct. You can do this. You can store payment information. Once you have that information on file, then we would advocate that you also set up, as part of your intake with a client, a fee arrangement where you designate, hey, we're going to send out invoices on the 1st of every month, or maybe it's the 5th of every month, or whatever the date is. If there are no objections to the invoice within the set number of days, and it could be 3, 5, 10, we have firms that go as little as 3 days. And if their clients don't object to the invoice after 3 days, then they go ahead and run payment. It's very similar. Think of like how many of you have paid utility bills with a check? I don't. I haven't paid a utility bill with a written check in years. I have it set up with my utility company. They have my payment information. I get the invoice. I can view it, and then it gets charged on a certain date. It's just kind of like a lot of people are used to this type of how I'm going to pay for services. So put that arrangement in place. You have your payment information collected and stored, ready to use whenever you want to use it. So then in TimeSolv now, and this is what we rolled out back in December, I can go to my sent invoice screen. And here I'm looking at my long list of all my sent invoices since the beginning of time, right? Well, you can filter these sent invoices to show, look, I just want you to show me the sent invoices from January 1st to today. Show me just the unpaid invoices, and just show me the invoices where I have a payment method on file. Well, first I'm just going to do all invoices just to show you kind of the difference. So I have 8 records here. I have 8 unpaid invoices. And again, this is essentially my AR, isn't it? I have $37,000 of outstanding invoices that have yet to be paid. I'm going to say, hey, now show me just these invoices that are unpaid, and I do have that payment method. And now it filtered it down to 5. I got 5 invoices here for $21,000, and I have their payment method. That 3, 5, 10 days has passed. All I knew, and then I'm ready to run payment. I know now I'm going to get paid on the, let's say, 6th of every month, or I know I'm going to get paid on the 15th of every month because I control it. I control when I run these payments. Simply check the box, hit this charge button, and I now have 5 invoices charged successfully. I can go to all my invoices, hit search here. Oop, excuse me. Here we go. And here's those paid invoices right here from today that I sent out. Boom. I mean, you're getting paid right now, here and now. When this happens, not only is the payment recorded, but obviously it's allocated to the invoice. You don't have to worry about doing any of that. You can also set up, there will be an email sent to the client notifying them that you've run payment. In our invoice settings under client and settings, in the invoice settings tab, scroll down here. Here's the invoice email message, and you can even make sure you include like just a reminder, if there's no objections to this invoice, we'll run payments in 5 working days as per our fee agreement. If your payment method has changed, please contact us. Then here's the message that you can email to people when you run that payment. When you click that charge that you just saw me click, it will generate an email to your clients with the message, whatever you want to say, like we have run payment on your recent invoice, and it'll include an attached receipt for the record showing the invoice is paid. Really powerful way, we think, to make sure you're collecting payment. And the firms at TimeSolv that are using this, they have a collection rate of 97+%. The only issue they ever run up against that they've told us about is the fact that some payment methods might fail, like a credit card has expired or it's exceeded its limit and so on, which is that is when they've stopped doing trust accounting. They don't do trust accounting anymore because they don't need to. All they do is they will take a trust payment at the beginning of working with a client only as a security deposit, and only for clients that they're not sure will be able to, make payment with a credit card or ACH. So if a credit card does fail or the ACH payment doesn't run, then that's when they dip into the trust account and use that to pay the invoice. At the end of the work that they've done with their clients, if that security deposit hasn't been tapped into, they just return it. They just refund the whole thing at the end. Think of it as like your trust account. It becomes, it's a security deposit on payment made through the method that you collect, either credit card or ACH. So we're very excited about this feature and being able to do it in batch with your sent invoices to run payments. So if you have a LexCharge or LawPay account, make sure that it's hooked up with your payment settings. Our support people can help you do that to make sure that your payment profile is set up to that. Then you can go about collecting the payment information, having the fee agreement of when you're going to run payment, and you're on your way to having a collection rate that's sky high. Okay, there were a couple questions that came in on some statements. Is there a way to preview the narrative before I hit send on the statement, similar to invoices? Yeah, when you create your statements, well, first of all, let's go back and make sure that when you go under your client and settings and you go under invoice settings, you do have your statement email message. So this is the message by default that will go out to people when you generate statements. So that's where you can have your default. And then you can always customize them at along the way. You can customize it at the client level, where you can come into your invoice settings and modify the email to this particular client. And you can also do it one level down at the matter level if you have multiple matters. When you're looking at the matter, go to the invoice settings. And again, you can edit narratives and edit the statement email. So that's a place where you set up your default. So as long as this is set up, you generally wouldn't necessarily need to preview the statement. But if you do want to preview the statements, it's a good question. You want to go under the statements area where we were before, go to new statements, select all. Let's say, yeah, we'll just do client ones. Doesn't really matter. Well, we'll do matter level. Hit create. And then right over here, this download button here is where you could essentially preview it. We don't have the preview kind of magnifying glass thing like you do with invoices. You do actually have to download the statement, but this does allow you to preview the statements before they go out. You can see it's generating for me. And there it is. And we'll open it up. And there's the preview of what the actual statement will look like. And then before I showed you the preview of what the email message would look like. Okay, currently, okay, I know you said you're mentioning previewing the narrative on the statements. I hope I answered that by going through what I just showed you. If you need to walk through and there really is no narrative, if you will, on the statement other than the email message. In your flexible billing template, it will pull. You can set up your statement page with what you want to include on your statement. So if you need any more help, Anu, I would contact support on that, if I'm not answering the question clearly. Okay, any insight about any new big changes within the next 30 days? I know, and I've teased this a little bit, we've been working on a new dashboard feature that will allow a lot of the information in TimeSolv to be viewed in a graphical manner. I believe it's still scheduled to be released before the end of quarter 1, so by the end of March. I have not personally seen an actual like preview yet of what it's going to look like. I've just been in the updates we get from our dev team. I've seen, they've been talking about how we will, in a very graphical way, with, I'm talking, charts, bars, pie charts, that sort of stuff, the ability to see a lot of information within TimeSolv. I don't have any more details on that. And same thing with the enhanced reports. I don't have any details on the rollout date. I know that the dashboard part is being developed before the enhanced reports, and that's the best I can tell you. Okay, one question from Lynn. Is there a place where we can easily see what payments have paid a particular invoice, like maybe a payments tab in the matter or job? You can actually do that over here on the payments area. It's not, well, let me take that back here a little bit. So when you're viewing a particular client, you can take a look at the invoices that have been sent and the balance on them. So that might be kind of an answer, because if there's if there's still a balance, there hasn't been a payment. As far as the actual payments themselves that you may have recorded, if you go under your payments area here, then you can just search by a particular client and matter, show, all payments in the last, let's just say 120 days, show all, for the client. So not just a particular matter. You can search by all payment methods and so on and so forth. So this will show you, here's all the different specific payments that have been made for this particular client over the last 120 days. And you can see what, what invoice numbers they've gone towards. These have all been allocated, and you can see I have an outstanding balance. So this is where you could kind of view that client by client payment information. That invoice tab over at the matter level Again, we'll just show you the invoices and if they've been paid or not. So I hope that answers that question. Lots of good questions. Okay, we are at 12:45 my time here in the Midwest, Central Time Zone. Any other questions? I do have, again, a few notes of things I'll follow up with support. Any other sort of detailed questions on things? And let me make sure I get this back up so you guys can see this. Make sure that you contact us at support@timesolv.com. There's our 1-800 number. Extension 2 will get you to support. And any ideas on feature enhancements that you'd like to see at TimeSolv, then you go ahead and do timesolv.ideas.aha.io. Okay. Let me see if we have any last questions. If you don't use law, pay does not show the invoice number. Oh, good point. Yeah, in that case, then you could take a look over here at each one, you hit edit and at a payment. Excuse me, not edit, go to reallocate. And this will show you the invoice number that it was allocated to. Little clunky, I suppose, of seeing which payments have been applied to which invoices. I wonder if there's a report. I'm going to ask about that. I wonder if there's a report where you can see, what payment you recorded was allocated to what invoice. It's good. It's a very good question, actually. Okay. When you process, and one more question here, when you process a write-off in the draft and substitute adjustment to write-off, how come when you run the summary of invoices and payment allocations reports does not show under write-off but adjustment? Paula, that is a fantastic question that is too detailed for me to be able to answer, I'm afraid. This is getting into some of the real nitty-gritty that I am being exposed of not knowing why. So I would suggest, again, reaching out to support to ask that question about the process of writing. We say writing off a draft. That's interesting. I'm not sure what you mean by that. But so you're going to need to probably contact support on that question. All right, one last one. Yes, during COVID, we have clients that have been making small payments several times, all applying to different invoices. So it'd be great to look at both invoices and see all the payments that paid it in full and look at the payments and see all the invoices that was applied to. Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that because that's a super good question, Lynn, on the ability to see the payments that have been made and how they were allocated out. So I wonder if I'm going into the reports here. I don't know the answer to that exactly. If we have a report that handles that, well, this ledger entries perhaps list of payments and invoices for a client. So I'm not sure if this is, yeah, Tina's jumping in and saying, yeah. So we could say, hey, let me use, we'll just say Best Buy and generate a report there. This very well might do it from a report point of view. You guys are teaching me a lot today. You guys got me on my toes. I appreciate it. Yeah, okay, so here we go. Credit memo, transfer from trust, invoice for automatic allocation. This I think, yeah, here's payment. So this will just show you, yeah, this is a ledger entry basically, yeah. So it'll show you the payment. These are all law pay ones. So again, getting back to your question, will it show ones that are not via law pay? Will it show you the invoice number? That I'm not 100% sure of. Maybe I picked the wrong one. Let me follow up on that. I don't want to take up everybody's time here trying to get this detailed. Yeah, it would be, but you could do this. You have to hunt through them all, but it would be by client at the very least. So one client at a time and not all clients. Yeah, that's a good question, Lynn. I'll follow up with our support team along with some of the other questions that we had, and I'll try to include those in the follow-up email I should send up probably tomorrow with a link to this webinar. Okay. Any other questions for those of you who have hung in here? Okay. Well, hey, thanks everybody for your time, for your fantastic questions. I apologize I couldn't necessarily answer every single question right off the top of my head, but I will work to make sure I can find the answer and get that to you all. So um, I will send out the recording, like I said, tomorrow, and we will do this again on March 10th, exactly 4 weeks from today, March 10th. We will do this again. I'm assuming that it'll be hopefully warmer here in Minneapolis. So for everybody, take care. Have a good rest of your month. Happy Valentine's Day, all that good stuff. And we'll hopefully see you in March. So take care, everybody.